Hey, that was a really great speech there you gave. I'm happy to be here today in your great city. I believe they call it the Rose City. Awesome stuff. Cool. So what I'm going to try and do here is present a video which is self-explanatory in what I do, which shows some of the newsreels that were done, some of the Discovery Channel TV shows and other strange and wonderful things that has happened over the years. I hope the video quality is okay in this system here. And after that, what I'd like to do is have questions and answers. If that's okay with you folks, let me know and we'll get the show on the road. Cool. Well, I think since it's all self-explanatory, some of these videos of mine, let's roll the tapes.
You play outside, John.
Big pardon?
Go ahead, John.
You got me. Cool. You got me. Cool. Later, Rip. There goes, he says. Let's see what happens now. No, we got no audio.
His lab is located in the basement of a nondescript store in Vancouver. Hutchison doesn't want to tell us, or doesn't want us to tell you where it is exactly. Working with huge jolts of electricity of up to 500,000 volts, Hutchison is tinkering with Tesla's central thesis that large amounts of power can be transmitted through the air without wires. One of the side effects of his experiments involves the levitation of inanimate objects. He cannot yet predict with any accuracy which objects will rise, when or where, but they do rise, as you're about to see.
You enter the world of John Hutchison through an old bank vault door, revealing a museum-like atmosphere charged with electric energy. Hutchison sits at a handheld control panel, fine-tuning equipment some feel might change the world.
I use these headsets here to monitor frequency changes going by the static patterns that I hear. And down here, I'll adjust the magnetic flux. And I can feel the rhythm of the energy.
The rhythms of the energy are generated by an enormous jumble of strange-looking electronic equipment, much of it hand-built by Hutchison himself. Components include vacuum tubes, 40-year-old technology. Some of the equipment is modeled after that of turn-of-the-century physicist Nikola Tesla. Tesla developed alternating current, the electrical system used today. His experiments included the transmission of energy without wires. Some feel he was the greatest inventor of all time. Hutchison began by duplicating some of his early work. Very similar to Tesla's experiments before the turn of the century, isn't it?
Yes, it is. He used very old-fashioned geyser tubes. This is a modern neon tube.
You believe that ultimately electricity could be transmitted without wires over long distance?
I would think so, by using vacuum tube oscillators.
That would do away with high tension wires ultimately?
Yeah.
The Jacobs ladder effect is demonstrated just for fun. And other effects are duplicated in Hutchison's basement lab. But it was his love of old equipment that led to advanced experimentation.
This is an old diamond motor, turn of the century. And I got it from the scrap dealer. And it appears to be the same kind of motor that Tesla used in some of his experiments.
Hutchison's equipment combines recycled electronics and huge hand-built coils that together defy some established laws of physics.
That's a Tesla coil. In regards to Tesla, it would be probably a very small one. It can fill about 1.5 million volts.
Did you build it?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to wind something like that?
It took me about a week to do the whole coil. The winding itself, I guess about a day and a half.
Hutchison cranks up power of up to 500,000 volts, but the source is just one wall outlet. If he has developed a new source of energy, it uses very little power. He sets up metal and plastic objects in the area he feels things will move, but unexpected articles begin to fly. As fun beyond the set takes off. being electromagnetic in nature, somehow is interfering with the gravitational pull of the Earth. Shall we try it again? See what happens tonight? Give it another shot. Good. So I'll fire it up again. I hope we're lucky. Watch the tin foil here. Hang in there. The tin foil is film. Just point up, flicker a bit, and drop down. Flicker? Yeah, just show. Okay, I'll keep okay, I'll keep operating and maybe we'll get some metal breaking up. He has indeed broken metal into fragments and lifted an entire snowplow. He just can't predict what will move. Hutchison doesn't know if it's the equipment alone or his effect on the equipment. But Canadian researchers are now discussing the Hutchison effect with physicists around the world, and it may lead to developments not even thought of yet.
That's a proper life.
Have only dreamed of doing. Grant Fredericks visited the lab this afternoon and has some interesting observations.
When one walks off East Hastings Street in Burnaby into John Hutchison's world, one leaves behind the conventions of the 20th century and enters a scene more in common with something out of a Jules Verne film.
From our Vancouver News Center, Weekend Night Flight with Ted Chernett.
Good evening, Jones, with electricity. Time machines, and his latest invention has a lot of people interested.
It looks like something out of a Frankenstein movie, but this is John Hutchison's latest project. Hutchison's a modern-day inventor. He lives in Vancouver and supports his hobby of tinkering with old electrical equipment with money he gets from the Ministry of Human Resources. Hutchison suffers from agoraphobia, a fear of open spaces. That's kept him from holding a job and makes him eligible for social assistance. With lots of free time and very little money, his 20-year hobby has become a passion that's earned him a reputation.
Well, I know I'm a bit of an oddball, and I don't mind. I'm a bit eccentric and a little spinny, but I love it. But no, the scientists took me serious. I've had some contacts with UBC, and they thought it was a little off the wall.
This maze of electrical devices is Hutchison's most promising invention. No one knows exactly how it works, but it apparently creates an electromagnetic field capable of moving objects from a distance.
Basically, it's a device that projects energy at a distance and affects test samples, bends them, or breaks them up, or lifts them up in the air, or makes them go sideways.
Hutchison says he can't give a demonstration of this phenomenon right now. It would take a week to hook everything up, but his access to this room is limited. The equipment is being stored here only temporarily, and he may have to move it soon. Still, this amateur film shows what Hutchison claims his invention does. The objects you see are resting on a plastic milk carton close to his device. He says they rise in the air after he hits the switch, and sometimes metal objects simply bend or even break.
You're looking at something which you know should be happening.
Vancouver businessman Alexis Pizarro has seen Hutchison's project in action. In 1981, a company he helped form signed a deal with Hutchison. The company would promote Hutchison's discovery and work to develop it further.
I immediately realized that this had tremendous significance. It had some influence in space, it had military implications, and its understanding could possibly open up a whole new energy source.
Pizarro's company, Ferris Technologies, did spark a lot of interest in Hutchison's discovery. In 1983, a United States Army team investigated the invention after putting up $25,000 in funding. But after the investigation, the funding ended. In 1986, Canada's Scientific and Technical Intelligence Branch examined Hutchison's creation. A letter written on the visit by the branch director concluded, "We do not foresee any further consideration of support, as the phenomenon appears to be intermittent and unpredictable."
In each of the above cases, the parties have been attracted by the features of Hutchison's invention, namely that it can move objects around from a distance and has been seen to bend and fracture pieces of metal. But in each case, a big catch has put the interest in check. That catch is that the effects cannot be reproduced consistently. They only happen occasionally and by chance.
At this point in time, it can't be really of any practical use until it's worked on, cultivated into a continuous effect. And indeed, I got that information from the Canadian Defense Department.
With no sustained interest in the project, Hutchison and Ferris Technologies had some disagreements and have parted ways. Hutchison now does his own promotion. He says the latest interest comes from a group of American scientists who have indicated they may set him up in Washington State or California. But Hutchison's not holding his breath. He says before he sees money and backing, any interest is just talk. And until then, his invention will remain a maze of apparently great potential. Cal Barton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A 66-year-old man is facing drug charges after police uncovered an apparent magic mushroom farm.
Energy inventors finding strange new ways to power the planet. John Hutchison has been dabbling with electricity for decades, copying the work of famed scientist Nikola Tesla, whose AC power still runs our world. Along the way, messing about with military surplus gear, John may have stumbled across one of the most amazing scientific discoveries of our age. Experimenting with radio waves and electricity led John to discover an effect which has mystified government and military scientists. It boils, it bends, it sends objects flying through the air.
I was building these replications of Tesla's old machines and found them doing fascinating things. Then this whole thing happened, this fluke kind of thing, Hutchison effect.
This was some effect. Air squeezed out of bottles, ice drinks moving through space, drill bits levitating. An effect so convincing and so varied, it seemed impossible to fake.
In John's labs, I've actually seen levitation of rock. I've seen levitation of steel ball bearings, glass, where they will levitate. Unbelievable. I've seen electricity go right into the objects and a million pieces just fly apart.
In fact, using only 75 watts of energy, enough for a small light bulb, Hutchison made a 60-pound cannonball rise off the table. It would also fuse dissimilar materials, heat metal but not burn the wood it sat on, shatter metal as well as change its crystalline structure. This was something to write home about.
Beginning of 1980, I experimented with all the electromagnetics and electrostatic equipments I had at the time. I started to notice some very, very unusual effects, such as a room being filled up very quickly with multicolored lights, steel bars sitting on wood and not causing any fires, metal turning to jelly, things levitating and jumping off to the ceiling, or simply go up, hover, and then fall back down.
Dubbed by some as the poltergeist machine, there is no one machine, just a lot of old Army surplus gear, randomly tuned by John. No one knows how it works. John has apparently figured out the right combination of radio waves and electrical energy to create the effect. If it could be proven, its impact would be huge. You'd have to rewrite most of the science textbooks, especially the part about what goes up. And the story gets even weirder, involving both the Canadian and U.S. military intelligence.
Here we go, into my place. Canadian government seized my laboratory, which is 22 tons of equipment. I came back from Germany and moved into this place here and started my experiments again with Army surplus and Navy surplus equipment, which I got from warships, and bought a lot from various surplus stores in the United States and Canada, starting in 1994. And some of this equipment actually goes back to the 1940s, directional finding equipment, all kinds of neat configuration of waveforms and that, right up to 44 gigahertz. There's a wide range and wide spectrum of fields and that to work with.
Of course, given the potential magnitude of an effect which can turn metal into jelly and levitate objects, it wasn't long before news leaked out. In this case, to Colonel John Alexander with INSCOM, U.S. Army Intelligence, whose specialties included training people to bend metal with their minds, or PK, psychokinetic training.
Well, they had an 8mm film, and it was purported to have been taken in Canada, and it showed various items that were levitating, falling, accelerating. The breadth of materials that seemed to be affected by whatever the effect was certainly interesting, because it wasn't just metal. It clearly wasn't just some big magnet or something like that. And it was sufficiently interesting that we said, well, we're involved on that. So we agreed to fund it.
Why was the Army so interested in John's effect? Well, look at all those objects going up, instead of down. They knew a hot property when they saw it. This anti-gravity could have a huge impact on military aircraft. New types of propulsion in weight-reduced planes could fly higher and faster. So Colonel Alexander and his team went to Vancouver to test John's effect.
During 1983, U.S. Army Intelligence and Los Alamos National Laboratories set me up in a large laboratory. We did 4 months of testing.
We had a team of 6 people from Army Intelligence and from Los Alamos, including myself, that came out for the demonstration.
As usual, John revved up his machines to create his electronic force field to start the effect. Exactly what happened next is still debated by the various participants.
And things started off very good, actually, because there was a whole battery of lights, fluorescent lights that lit up really bright and then exploded, and then incandescent lamps in this massive warehouse lit up.
The effects that happened always happened when we were not present, and so they could not give any first-hand evidence.
Time progressed in all these experiments.
We get mirrors breaking apart, odd voltage things happening.
But Colonel Alexander had given John some metal rods he used in his psychokinetic work to test the validity of people's metal bending claims. These rods could only be bent through extreme measures, like heating them to thousands of degrees.
Probably the most interesting was a molybdenum rod that I used in PK testing. And what had happened is he presented to me, it had a slight S-curve in the rod itself. We looked at it very carefully to see if it had been heated and gripped or something like that, and found no indication that it had. That suggested to us that there were effects that were going on.
In the end, Bob, a skeptical Los Alamos investigator, deemed the tests inconclusive. And according to this letter from Los Alamos, all documents pertaining to the Hutchison tests were destroyed.
According to Bob, the one man, things didn't work. And let's forget about it and classify it.
While officially the tests were brushed aside, Colonel Alexander has kept an open mind.
Even though nothing happened during our investigation when we were present, 5 of the 6 people present believed that it probably did happen. It just didn't happen, while we were there.
But the fact remained that the U.S. intelligence services left, apparently having written the effect off. Then on the 24th of February 1990, something strange happened. John was out of the country when his lab was forcibly seized by the Canadian government. Despite a court order to return it, John never got his equipment back. When he tried to move his experiments to Germany, the authorities there refused him permission. Months later, John heard a rumor that his brainchild was not dead and buried, but was being studied by the American military.
It was basically classified, and I've been hearing stories for years and feel now that they did get results and are replicating it at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works.
Was it a rumor, or was the largest military power on the planet experimenting with the Hutchison effect? John believes the Pentagon tests of his anti-gravity effect may have ended up at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, home to secret U.S. military projects, including new types of super aircraft and top-secret or black ops propulsion systems. Stranger still, Nick Cook, a writer for the respected British military journal Jane's Defense Weekly, found out about John Hutchison's work through one of Lockheed Martin's top scientists.
So I was at Lockheed Martin, I was with Boyd Bushman, a senior engineer there, and he showed me a film that purported to show some of John Hutchison's levitation experiments. What we saw was a saw, some nails, a hammer, household stuff. Most of them were shooting off the top of the screen. It was almost like an impulse reaction. Normally I would have kind of looked at this stuff and just thought it's somebody's idea of a practical joke. But the fact that it was being highlighted to me by somebody from Lockheed Martin as something I should be paying attention to kind of got my attention. And that was what really convinced me to go and at least have a look at what John Hutchison was doing. I'm 99% convinced that this is not a hoax. I don't think anyone knows what is going on here, but too many people have looked into it, too many people have investigated. People who have my respect for me to think that it's a hoax.
Eventually, Lockheed Martin would send their own team to conduct tests, but John hasn't heard much since, and he worries about his technology being used for military purposes. Like Galileo in his time, who was imprisoned for looking too closely at stars, John and his technology have been stopped cold, shunned by mainstream science. Frustrated by his inability to bring this anti-gravity technology to the world, John spends his days gathering more Navy surplus gear for his much smaller apartment-based lab.
We better try to make sure it works.
For those prone to claustrophobia, John's home is not the place to stay for drinks and a game of cards.
Living here in this space is like living inside a very cramped submarine. My girlfriends find this rather interesting and quite different. And actually I've had some girlfriends stay overnight. They didn't seem to mind it. It hasn't got the best of things for feminine amenities, but they managed to tough it out, let's say. This is a shower box, I call it. Renamed the shower box, so when I come in here and after I get out of bed, I pull out my trusty navy-colored box, which contains all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff for growing hair, creams and stuff, shaving equipment. Then I proceed to crawl into the little box there and start cupping myself with a cup of water and shave and all that. So I go into that routine and then think of what I'll be doing for the day. So what I have is this thing is on a string. It's a toy UFO. I'm going to suspend it from a string off the floor, firing energy fields at it and see if I can get it to even move.
Working on his effects research, John sees himself as more of an artist than scientist. Turning and twisting knobs like a painter. Dipping into electrical fields to access a random force field. But in a small lab, it's even less predictable than before. The saucer is moving and changing direction, but there might be other forces at work here. Colonel Alexander, who trained people in the U.S. Army Intelligence Service to bend metal using their minds, believes that John could be inadvertently creating the Hutchison effect through his own PK, or psychokinetic powers.
One of the possibilities is that the electronic fields were actually amplifying some sort of PK experience that he was having or causing to happen. It is not uncommon, if you study the whole field of poltergeist phenomena, that strange macro PK events occur and yet seem to be beyond the control of the individual who is causing it to happen.
An example of this kind of random event happened in 1989 when a visiting Vancouver news crew was setting up at John's lab to film the Hutchison effect. The target area was that yellow crate with the metal objects. But to everyone's shock, a sponge in the back of the room took off into the air and then fell back down. John didn't actually see it and was genuinely surprised.
And it went up and hit the ceiling 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, and then came down.
Well, some time ago I was doing some testing and got into some big trouble after I levitated a toy UFO and some other objects.
Apparently, John's experiments were lifting objects in nearby homes, and the neighbors called the police.
The police came full bore in here with engineers, inspectors. They photographed all the equipments very carefully. It's almost like if you call in a cleaning crew. They didn't touch anything. It's like they made everything look neater for some strange reason.
It seems like someone in the shadows still cares what our hero is up to. Frustrated by authorities and lack of recognition, John has been spending time developing his new project, batteries that last forever, based on the somewhat bizarre zero-point energy theory. Followers of this theory believe that all physical matter floats in a sea of energy, which if collected and converted into electrical power, could more than meet all the world's demand for energy.
I feel everything has a life force to it. Because I tend to visualize that atoms are a whole universe, and when they're combining one atom to make millions, if not trillions of them, you have a piece of metal, perhaps. Every time you run your hand across a piece of metal, you're taking off several million atoms at a time.
To demonstrate how energy is everywhere, John uses rocks from his neighborhood and in 2 hours makes a zero-point battery strong enough to power a pen light.
I make sure it bonds almost 1/2 electron volt. things. They could last approximately as long as minerals last, up to maybe 1,000 years, unknown.
Realizing his batteries could help solve the world's energy crisis, the Japanese have embraced John and funded him to build his bigger crystal-based models.
I got orders from Japan and sponsorship for me to make more of them. So the money would come through into my bank account, and indeed I made units that are actually in Hiroshima City. You don't mind.
While various zero-point energy devices were funded by the Japanese, so far none have taken off on a mass scale. Whether building batteries or levitating objects, John Hutchison is an eccentric enigma. Of course, virtually no mainstream scientists take John or his invention seriously. But then only a little over 100 years ago, people believed it was impossible to send a radio wave across the Atlantic. Now just imagine if this backyard scientist really has discovered a primal force of nature that could transform our world.
I am only taken seriously by the military scientists. The academic scientists really don't know what to make of me. Well, to say a lot of other people too don't know what to make of me. I'm just a different person, and I'm kind of happy with myself. I don't want to try and change myself.
Are the results objects floating in the air? You'd think it's a breakthrough in the world of science. Yet, to this date, the Hutchison effect has not been reproduced by anyone but John Hutchison. Adding to the mystery, the Canadian government confiscated his anti-gravity equipment in the late 1980s. The U.S. government has also become extremely interested in the Hutchison effect. In fact, one U.S. Army lieutenant colonel sent this man to investigate John Hutchison's phenomenon.
We're talking about what I would categorize as minor matter. And if it's that, then it won't become an anti-gravity machine in the future, but I believe it should be of interest to science.
Engineer Jack Houck works for an aeronautical corporation. On his 2-day visit 12 years ago, he videotaped cylinders falling and gun barrels crashing on cement. Houck believes that the Hutchison effect is real, and he knows why John Hutchison is the only one who can pull off the anti-gravity trick.
My best judgment is that this correlates with the types of things that happen with a mind effect, mind over matter psychokinesis.
John Hutchison was skeptical of that theory at the time, but now believes his mind might be partly responsible.
Perhaps this is a byproduct of working with these high energy fields for so long, that you interact with them and they seem to actually act on the neurotransmitters in the brain.
John Hutchison still hopes to someday apply his anti-gravity discovery to space propulsion and free energy systems. Knowing those possibilities keep the Hutchison effect very much in demand and keeps him ready for the next time the government comes knocking.
I think John is a very warm person who seems to have stumbled along some very interesting phenomena.
At least one well-known physicist in Ontario is still trying to duplicate the Hutchison effect. So far, no luck. Now,
will keep oxygen alive, we take it.
Real progress is being made in a laboratory in Canada. Here, the full significance of the physical laws of light and space have become clear to John Hutchison, and he is utilizing this knowledge to produce cause and effect experiments which lead to an understanding of the harmony of nature. Science, in harmony with the laws of nature for the good of mankind, will hold great values in many fields and will advance its course beyond our present comprehension. John Hutchison has been working in the areas of electromagnetic forces and the changes in the molecular structure of materials for many years. He has in this time achieved a breakthrough in anti-gravity knowledge, providing spectacular examples of heavy objects flying through the air without any visible signs of propulsion. He He has also made amazing discoveries concerning the alteration of compositions of materials by subjecting them to a form of electromagnetic bombardment.
Looking at something which you know to be happening.
The result of these experiments showed in graphic detail metal heating to a near liquid state without heat. Hard metals would turn into soft rubbery objects, proving that any substance could change its form if the science involved was understood.
I immediately realized that this had tremendous significance. It has significance in space, it had military implications, and its understanding could possibly open up a whole new energy source.
Hutchison is one of the growing number of scientists who realize that by applying physics to the natural laws of the universe, science will be taken into areas previously unrecognized. John Hutchison's achievement will give science a new momentum as it moves into the next century.
Some of the work of the lone inventor, John Hutchison, Canada, Vancouver, Canada. Hutchison takes two Tesla coils and essentially puts in the center of them a target, which every target has a certain amount of areas, and then blasts away with these two coils in it. Basically, what he establishes is electromagnetic fighting itself, electromagnetic forces fighting themselves. And gravitational force is made when, gravitational potential is made when electromagnetic forces fight themselves to a draw. In other words, the gradient becomes zero. The gradient vectors or the resultants become zero, but the two forces are still in there slugging it out. All the energy is still going, the work is still going, but it's trapped locally. That's internal energy. That's what gravity is. And the Whittaker effect tells very well how to do that. So when John got things just right, he didn't have control of it, absolute control, but he bored in there with persistence. And when he got things just right to get the forces to fight to a draw, and it was the right nonlinearity, the target he would have levitation things he was found. He would also, another thing you do with such a thing is you cause the magnetostatic potential to change a vacuum. In other words, that's pole, unfortunately. But in other words, it causes deposits of monopoles inside materials such as metals. And you will literally have the monopoles repel each other, and you'll have the explosive separation of metals into all kinds of ranges and structures according to the waves in the Tesla coils that you're bombarded with. And so he produced a magnificent break, Hutchison did, in metals and splits as if it were Venetian blinds. And another thing it does, since this stuff comes from the nucleus atom, it doesn't go through the electron shells, its medium is the nuclei. What you have then is you have changes in the atomic nuclei, which result in lattice changes. You have production of alloys, which cannot be made in this world, probably normal processes. And some of those alloys appeared in John Hutchison's work as a result of that kind of bombardment. Another thing you have is once charged with scalar radiation, nuclei and continue to discharge over a long period of time. And so the material continues to change about one form and so forth over a period of a year. And you have those changes occur in his work also. He was reproducing and has been reproducing some of the work of Nikola Tesla and even some of it even further. But that's what he's doing. What he's doing is real. And unfortunately, most people regard John Hutchison as being a little bit off, not really understanding electromagnetics, and not really understanding the Tesla coil because the truth. He's doing the real electromagnetics. He's doing the kind of electromagnetics they don't know anything about. He's doing electrogravitation and real Tesla.
The technology that we are aware of is quite staggering anyway. But then there is also the technology which the governments are.
発送効果を起こすには至っていません。しかもこの作命をかけた挑戦が始まっています。
取材に当たった日野記者です。
3日間シリーズでお伝えしたんですけれども、我々の常識では考えられないことばかりだったと思うんですけどね、要するにあれほど本格的にフリーエネルギーの研究をしている人というのが実際にいるわけですね。
そうですね、その背景があるということなんですよね。エネルギーに関する国際学会
And this lab that you see around you is set up to investigate new concepts in physics and engineering, especially those that are directly related to novel energy and propulsion technology. By far the most advanced and unusual such non-conventional energy technology that I have ever witnessed is the Hutchison effect. This video will try to document Hutchison's research and suggest basic physical theories which might help understand and explain what I would call the Hutchison effect. Much of the work at this laboratory in Toronto is meant to try to help investigate and elucidate the physics underlying the Hutchison effect. The presentation will be divided into several different sections, each of which will proceed more or less chronologically. The first section will describe what is meant by the Hutchison effect itself and give a brief background. Next, you'll see some of the early film footage that was taken by myself and mostly by John Hutchison late at night, and from 1980 to 1985 timeframe. Then I discussed my personal involvement with John Hutchison via a company that was set up to understand and try to develop the Hutchison effect. Following this, you'll see later results from the 1988 to 1989 timeframe, a point at which John was involved with another company in Vancouver, British Columbia. In 1988, I formally presented the Hutchison effect at an international symposium on new energy technology, which was held in Hull, Quebec, Canada. And at that time, I suggested that several physicists whose work should be investigated be contacted to see whether they could help to understand what was going on. And I also appealed to scientists generally to help to elucidate the concepts and the physics behind the Hutchison effect. I'll conclude with a summary of the Hutchison effect, giving possible and potential applications of the effect, and providing some future directions and recommendations.
kind of rough video there on the Red Bull commercial thing. I know, I think the tracking's off or whatever. We can, if you want, we can cut it off.
Yeah, let's cut it off.
Yeah, let's cut it off. Kind of like the thing about the magic mushroom farm. I wonder if I left that in. Left that in for a good laugh anyway. So, anyway, okay, let's get back to reality. That was kind of fun. That's my editing there is really rough. I mean, that's in high definition, but looking at that mess is like, ew. It's got an electrical kind of tune to it, I guess you'd say. But, okay, I guess, well, I put a clock in there at the Red Bull thing. This actually was a commercial for Red Bull. Fox, my producers down in LA wanted me to do a commercial and present it to Red Bull, and I did, but I haven't heard back from them. That was in 2006, so I was going full bore and doing all new stuff since a couple months ago until a new Westminster Fire Department shut it down because it's not zoned for levitation. And turned into a big battle, and it got political, and long story. But at least having a lot of production companies come in, such as History Channel, CNN, Japanese TV, and many, many others that have got this stuff. We got stuff not airing as yet. It should be airing pretty soon. We got a Ark of the Covenant. That should be a 1-hour TLC TV special. As well as we got a special Fox thing to air. Radio host Rob Simone was there filming along with the directors and all that, so that's to air yet too, and a few others. So I guess you'd say I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah, well there we go. So I guess, I don't know what a time kind of thing is, but questions and answers is fun to do. I'm promoting Pepsi. Uh-oh. Yeah, I thought, well, if I'm doing Red Bull, why not? Everything's working perfectly, so I put Coca-Cola in there, Pepsi in there, and all other tin cans, and got a whole stockpile on high-definition film. That's just a rough, horribly rough, actually. Aliens coming. Okay, let's go for questions and answers. Oh, hi.
I want to ask you, what kinds of, do you have any theoretical understanding of this phenomenon? I mean, do you know why it happens, how it happens, theoretically?
I'm not much of a theoretic scientist, but I have help. I have help from some of my scientific friends.
Do they have something they all agree on? Do they understand why it happens?
Yeah, a number of them do.
Within the realm of conventional theoretical physics?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, pretty much so. Dr. Elizabeth Ann Rocher, Dr. Ken Shoulders, and a few other also military scientists. I got my own theory too that seems to fall into that category.
Have they published it? Do they all agree on the same thing?
No, there's some publications in physical review letters, but I don't fall into that. I'm not promoting it. I'll let the scientists write up whatever they want to write up. I haven't really written anything because I'm not a scientist, number one, and I'm more into engineering and that kind of thing. This kind of thing, I'm not a promoter. I couldn't even sell a vacuum cleaner to a person in the street, so I'm not into promotion or...
Well, if they do understand it, can they make it repeatable?
Oh yeah, it's already repeatable in the military-industrial complex. They're using it in Black Ops for a long, long time.
Can you describe how it's being used in Black Ops, or do you...
They pardon?
Can you describe how it's being used in Black Ops?
Mostly for propulsion technology. And also used for directed energy research.
What is it propelling?
What is it? Propelling?
Yeah, you said propulsion technology.
Yeah, well, it would be used in rocket ships, satellites.
Okay. And one more question. The Canadian government came into your garage and stole all your stuff. Is that
Two
correct?
shipping containers. They came in and stole everything in around 1990. It made the front page of the newspapers. Then the
Yeah, well,
newspapers.
not here.
Beg pardon?
Not in America, but.
No, that was in Canada.
So, what happened to your stuff? Is it just it's gone and you have no more access to it?
Well, what happened to the main laboratory, which was 22 tons of stuff to be shipped to Germany by invitation by the German government, actually, it was seized by the Canadian government. So what they did do is take it and made a secret site for it with a fence around it, no trespassing. But luckily somebody found out about all that stuff and tipped off the newspapers, which published a story. Then later on, the news media for television and radio were not allowed to go into the area and talk about it. So the lawyers know all about it, and the news media from the Vancouver Sun and province know about it. But unfortunately, I can't say for sure if it aired on television because I was not here. So I never got any straight answers from. Going through the Freedom of Information Act, I never could get a straight answer. And all that stuff doesn't seem to exist according to these characters. So.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome.
If you tie it into 911, how this can be used?
I'm sorry?
Tie it into 911. How can you do it?
That's Dr. Wood's expertise. I don't know that stuff.
What about the metal over there? Can you talk about that? Show us what that?
Absolutely. We have quite a selection here. These samples here have been touched in by the Hutchison effect, and they've been converted and tested by many different groups over the years. Los Alamos National Laboratories, Lawrence Berkeley, as well as Max Planck Institute and Sandy Labs. And what you see here on these samples is unusual properties. Should I grab one of them? Which one would you like me to grab? Any of them? Oh my goodness. Well, let's see what I can grab. Here we go. This is when you go to a metal place, if you're into machining or have a machine shop, you buy bar stock. You can buy it in different sizes, lengths, and that, and they'll cut it off for you. So this is conventional bar stock. This is aluminium, and this is one of the samples used in some of the tests. It's on video somewhere in my thousands. I got thousands of hours of video, and you can see what Tom Beard was talking about in one of those shows there, how it rips apart from the nucleus upward. And some scientists most recently speculated it works on a quantum level, getting into quantum physics. And I believe the physics behind this is quantum as well as subatomic. So you're getting on the subatomic realm, the time particles, gravitons, chronons, and quantum science. I know when I'm working with this stuff, I know what I'm doing and adjusting and building the machinery to produce all the different fields. But to me, it's more of a challenge of engineering something and building it to do it to radio standards, old radio standards. But I don't keep notes, as I said, not interested in promoting it as something special. Actually, it's kind of funny when I first discovered this effect. I was taking samples like this and throwing them in the garbage because I couldn't use them for machining purposes, and these other scientists back in the 80s said, "John, what are you doing? These things are extremely important for research." And so why? Because I honestly felt that, hey, I'm not a scientist. This is probably already done somewhere. So anyway, so they presented to Washington State University, to SAIC group down in San Diego, as well as what other groups? All kinds of different groups in U.S. Army Intelligence and Security, Naval Research, as well as Hypotronics in New York, first New York, who have come and witnessed this stuff and take their samples home and have them tested. So this is one unique sample. I just found that, Dr. Judy Wood found out something quite intriguing on a sample that's been laying around for so long. Part of it's magnetic in the middle. And I should grab that sample. I don't know if the magnet's there or not, but I'll grab it. like these, a lot of these samples are still in Vancouver, and a huge portion of them are at Los Alamos or U.S. Pentagon as gifts, as well as NASA and Lawrence Berkeley, as well as overseas, Japan and Germany. So this thing, Dr. Wood was playing around with it with a magnet. And I've had it locked away for years, thinking, well, someday I'll do whatever I do with it, I guess. But she found out that it's slightly magnetic down here, turns extremely powerfully magnetic here. I don't think I can do this work. What supports the lab analysis were these things turn into mushy metal, this jelly, and the impurities or metals seem to separate from one another and come into like pure materials. Now this thing looks like it actually was under some type of strange force. It's stainless steel. It looks like it aged several thousand years into the future. So this is quite new, and I was going to, before I left, I was going to phone George Hathaway, as well as put a general news release to the Colonel and other folks interested in this kind of stuff on this effect. So I'll eventually get around doing that, as well as Ken Shoulders and Dr. Roger. Because George Hathaway is publishing a book on all the samples and lab analysis and all that, so it'd be a shame if you miss this thing. I don't want to ship it to him because it's kind of fun to play with this guy. I shipped him, yeah, it is, I mean, for television interviews and that, as well as right here. It's kind of fun to play with it and show it off a bit, and you can handle it yourself and touch it. Which brings me up to, I'm just going to do this over here. Sometimes these samples, they don't break apart, they explode in this fashion too, twisting around. Or they get other materials embedded in them, like a knife in this particular case. Actually, I made it through U.S. Customs with this. I guess hoping to go. I made it through a lot of customs over the years, okay. And in other, the same kind of material you buy at metal supply houses for machining and that. It's not a casting, so you can easily tell the casting by a file. You just, if it peels off, it's not a casting. And castings are like sandy kind of stuff. So this thing, other ones I do have wood embedded in them, and sawdust and other things, which are under analysis at Max Planck Institute by Hathaway and team and Los Alamos. I don't know why they wrote that letter that they burned all the records. I think that's a bit of a cover story, and the Colonel goes on to say it's all in my mind. Like, well, I don't think so. It's just that what that is all about with those guys is that it's like whitewashing it. So it's not a big interest. It's sort of a numbing down effect, I think. So the Canadians won't come on TV with me at all. They just simply vanished, and they just said it's a matter of national security what I do. So okay, they don't like to play and have fun. So what the heck? Which made me decide to go. And luckily, with film producers at Fox, I'll be doing a network TV show covering all of this stuff. That we got 13 episodes. We'll be covering the levitation, also the free energy aspects of it. I have an adopted daughter in Rome, Texas. She's kind of chip off the old block like me. Into all kinds of weird stuff. I'm going to teach her how to make one of these crystal power cells like I did with Discovery Channel there. That was Griffin Film Productions. One of many I did actually. And I'm going to teach her how to make a power cell for one of the episodes. Then we're going to cover the Philadelphia experiment, all the greatest, weirdest, craziest things you can think of, plus the time experiments in the South Pole that made it to the White House. We're going to cover that. I'm just visualizing being in the South Pole. Ouch. I haven't been in the North Pole even, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, so I'm going to go over here and put these back on the table. And lots of metal samples, so maybe I should be receptive to more questions.
Shout it out.
Hey, John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a lost acquaintance from Vancouver Island. They were doing manufacturing Royal Rife machines. You do any experiments with the medicinal aspect of Rife technology?
I'm interested, yes, I actually, not with Rife personally, but other electrotherapeutics I'm interested in, because I'm into life extension and that kind of thing. So some of the frequencies seem to be close to Dr. Rife's technology.
Do you visit with any of those fellows up there in BC that still make the machines?
No.
Oh, okay.
I like to see a real replication of the actual machine.
What's up there with you guys? We have to sneak them across the border.
Good grief. Dealing with customs again is so much fun.
Well, you can't do that anymore, eh?
What?
Customs is really mean now.
Oh, no, actually they're kind of fun. They love this stuff. I said I used to work with, I would just say with the U.S. Customs, I used to work with your government. And I answer all our questions quite truthfully. Yes, I got strange metal samples in the back of the car there, as well as lots of vitamins. And, well, you mind going over there to the police. So we go over to the police, and they check everything out, and they come back, and yeah, that's cool. And I actually shook the guy's hand and said, well, I'm going to look for you on the History Channel. I said, good. That's actually, it's under Earth's black holes. So I'll be making my ugly appearance out there somewhere again. Any more questions?
So there is effort to get your technology into the hands of good guys in terms of using it for peaceful purposes.
That's my goal. That's why I want to get right into doing the network television show with Fox. Teach all you folks what all this stuff is, and you can make it on your own if you wish to. That's the way to go, I think. I'm not interested in hiding. Like, I turned down many contracts. I don't like contracts. I don't like working from 9 to 5. The latest interest was from NASA a couple of years ago. And it was the Kennedy Space Center, Duke Philonstein and friends. He made an offer, and he was going to have a meeting with the director. But the director just decided that, no, we'll keep on target with our bigger and better boosters kind of mentality. Now, the U.S. Pentagon showed these videos off there, and it got a standing ovation by 400 officers. And I was most welcome to work with them. Like, I get a lot of my emails are from those folks. But really, okay, you could show me the Pentagon. I think that'd be kind of cool because I've never seen it. But working 9 to 5 under secret stuff, I'm not into that headspace, so. I'd rather be a beach bum than, you know, just don't have to worry about all that 9 to 5 high secret stuff. I'm not that kind of person, really. I'm so nutty anyway, you know, I get on TV, I get on the radio, and just let my thing rip and give demonstrations anywhere. So, but I think the main thing in all of this is what I want to do and what my producers want to do in product placement people is teach the young generation what all this stuff is and all about new energy, how to collect energy, and get the truth out there to them and get them inspired to building a lot of this stuff, which is actually simple technology. So I think by doing that, we all agree that it'd get them re-inspired instead of under this freaky control effects of 911, which I don't like the aspect. 911 was a real horror mess. When that happened, I went in shock as well as everybody else did up in Canada. Then after that, of course, the different laws came into effect, and that's when it became freaky. So I'm no expert on this 911 stuff with somebody promoting welding materials and all that stuff. I don't know why they promote welding materials. So I learned a lot from Dr. Judy Wood on the aspects of 911, and the photographs that she sent me were quite amazing because I kind of dropped it behind. I tried to research it out. I wondered what happened to why there's no pictures of certain things, like the U.S. Pentagon. Like, gee, there must be cameras around that have caught that. There's witnesses. And so the first thing years is, okay, whatever, you know, kind of thing, attitude. I just wish it never happened is basically my feeling on it. Because the shock waves from that are making, through the Patriot Act and affecting Canada, all these laws and regulations taking away our human rights. So my human rights, the vitamins that have been affected by this thing, it's like it was a planned thing to, if it was an act of terror, of course an act of terror like that, hitting the main power of the U.S. with U.S. Pentagon as well as the financial area, those buildings. But the aftershocks of all that horror too, going on and out, creating laws and regulations restricting all our freedoms, I think is, whoever planned this thing, it's quite an effective plan. Because there are going to be more laws and regulations passed, and everybody got to wake up and start kicking their heels in and get their freedoms back before it's too late. Get the National Rifle Association going full bore, the ham radio people going full bore. Everybody's got to cooperate. So support your local black market and let's get it going here. Yeah, very right.
Tesla had a Pierce Arrow car he was driving around, and somebody looked under the hood and found there wasn't a motor. Can you do something like that with your technology? Cars without a motor?
I think my webmaster wants to do that. I've inspired him to do that. I could probably do it, but I have no real interest in doing that. I like to teach other people how to do it. I just don't have time for it. I mean, I like to present it out in a special way with proper production people and directors, as well as consultants, so that we get a real good image in a short period of time on television.
But your technology is good at accomplish that.
Yes, it could. Absolutely. I had a letter, after 9/11, I had a letter from Congressman Berkeley Bedell, a friend of mine. There's a letter at 914, I call it. He was interested in a unit of power house. So he knew something about this 911 thing. That's Congressman Berkeley Bedell, by the way, who introduced the American Foundation for Alternative Health. Another congressman buddy is Dennis Kucinich, who's a very spiritual man. He wants to see all this stuff resolved, but I think he's like walking up the side of a mountain. A lot of opposition against what he's trying to do.
Can you speak about your battery technology just a little bit?
Sure.
I'm curious about it. Just explain it a little bit. How it's different from a conventional battery and... Excellent
question. Basically, it works on the Casimir effect, which is when you have two metal plates together, it produces power to draw those plates together. So I decided I'm intrigued by this, so I make a micro mixture of different minerals, about roughly 400 mesh, very fine powder, and I boil this stuff up and give it a memory to be self-reactive, so that it'll memorize to produce electrons through the old, basically the old Westinghouse process where they evaporate, let's say, tar or wax through a direct current field, and it condenses in a capacitor and fills up as a self-reactive material. So my idea was to incorporate T.T. Brown's work in petroelectrical, as well as the Casimir effect, and produce what you call probably an energy scavenging cell. So it's non-chemical reactions, so its reaction is picking up vibration, heat, as well as gravimetric, Casimir effect, all rolled into an energy scavenging cell, it's called. There's another person really doing work on this, is Dr. Franklin Mead, Mead's Air Force Base, but IBM bought up all the patent rights to his device, which means something's going to come out from IBM soon. Much like the Toronto Corporation's discovery of telomerase, the immortal enzyme, they bought up all the patent rights. Now they have a product out where for $25,000 you can join it, and oh, good heavens. But so Taken from the floor. Any more questions? Well, how about magic mushrooms?
How about propulsion? For example, sending a spaceship to Mars at a speed such that we have long more gravity all the time. The acceleration or deceleration. Can you accomplish that?
Oh, actually, that was the highest interest of McDonnell Douglas Aerospace Corporation. They wanted to do that, and we're trying to get funding for that. That funding dropped aside. You probably saw a segment on this rough film here of that, and he was trying to get funding for that. He had an idea that we could build a spaceship. Well, I think they did. It just went into Black Ops, where it was taken away from control. So it went into probably Lockheed Martin. Okay, so a few more questions, we're done. Okay, thank you. From my supporter here. On the floor, let's take some more.
Is this the same kind of technology that's used by FARC? Would you say, reading on exopolitics, that the Chinese government is, there are people in the Chinese government who are blaming the United States for their recent disaster, and some people
Earthquake.
the earthquake,
I can mention a little bit about the HART project, where they use directed beam technology, ELF waves, VLF radio waves, and high gain antennas, where they can bounce stuff off and down into the ionosphere, into the ground, and causing ground fault waves, which actually is the work of Tom Beard. You can build up huge standing columnar wave causing these effects at a great distance. So I don't do that kind of thing. Actually, speculated Tesla perhaps did that in 1906 in Tunguska. Big explosion over there in Russia where they flattened out, I think it was 500 square miles of forest. So that's my opinion on it. Most likely it's feasible, 100%. Yep, it's feasible.
Do you think Tesla was responsible for the purpose behind Augusta?
Yeah, it's been speculated that he has, sending up a huge standing column wave.